and thence he had carried her to Lovel Grange. She had brought with her no penny of fortune, and no settlement had been made on her. Her father, who was then an old man, had mildly expostulated, but the ambition of the daughter had prevailed, and the marriage was accomplished. The beautiful young woman was carried off as a bride. It will be unnecessary to relate what efforts had been made to take her away from her father's house without bridal honours, but it must be told that the Earl was a man who had never yet spared a woman in his lust. It had been the rule, almost the creed of his life, that woman was made to gratify the appetite of man, and that the man is but a poor creature who does not lay hold of the sweetness that is offered to him. He had so lived as to teach himself that those men who devote themselves to their wives, as a wife devotes herself to her husband, are the poor lubberly clods of creation, who had lacked the power to reach the only purpose of living which could make life worth having. Women had been to him a prey, as the fox is a prey to the huntsman and the salmon to the angler. But he had acquired great skill in his sport, and could pursue his game with all the craft which experience will give. He could look at a woman as though he saw all heaven in her eyes, and could listen to her as though the music of the spheres was to be heard in her voice. Then he could whisper words which, to many women, were as the music of the spheres, and he could persevere, abandoning all other pleasures, devoting himself to the one wickedness with a perseverance which almost made success certain. But with Josephine Murray he could be successful on no other terms than those which enabled her to walk out of the church with him as Countess Lovel. She had not lived with him 6 months before he told her that the marriage was no marriage, and that she was his mistress. There was an audacity about the man which threw aside all fear of the law, and which was impervious to threats and interference. He assured her that he loved her, and that she was welcome to live with him, but that she was not his wife, and that the child which she bore could not be the heir to his title, and could claim no heirship to his property. He did love her, having found her to be a woman of whose company he had not tired in 6 months. He was going back to Italy, and he offered to take her with him. But he could not, he said, permit the farce of her remaining at Lovel Grange and calling herself the Countess Lovel. If she chose to go with him to Palermo, where he had a castle, and to remain with him in his yacht, she might for the present travel under the name of his wife. But she must know that she was not his wife, she was only his mistress. Of course she invoked every Murray in and out of Scotland. Of course there were many threats. A duel was fought up near London, in which Lord Lovel consented to be shot at twice, declaring that after that he did not think that the circumstances of the case required that he should be shot at any more. In the midst of this, a daughter was born to her, and her father died, during which time she was still allowed to live at Lovel Grange. But what was it expedient that she should do? He declared that he had a former wife when he married her, and that therefore she was not, and could not be, his wife. Should she institute a prosecution against him for bigamy, thereby acknowledging that she was herself no wife, and that her child was illegitimate? From such evidence as she could get, she believed that the Italian woman whom the Earl in former years had married had died before her own marriage. The Earl declared that the real Countess had not paid her debt to nature till some months after the little ceremony which had taken place in Thwaite Church. In a moment of weakness, Josephine fell at his feet and asked him to renew the ceremony. He stooped over her, kissed her, and smiled. "My pretty child," he said, "why should I do that?" He never kissed her again. What should she do? Before she had decided, he was in his yacht sailing to Palermo, sailing, no doubt, not alone. What should she do? He had left her an income sufficient for the cast-off mistress of an earl, some few hundreds a year, on condition that she would quietly leave Lovel Grange, cease to call herself a countess, and take herself and her bairn whither she would. Every abode of sin in London was open to her for what she cared. What should she do? It seemed to her to be incredible that so great a wrong should befall her, and that the man should escape from her and be free from punishment, unless she